So after I knock your block off,
thank you very
can't
much.
nobody else say nothing else.
And it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna never happen.
Make sure y'all stay on point with the Puncher's Point. What is good, y'all? Welcome back to the Puncher's Point. I have been foreshadowing this. I've been trying to warn you. I've been trying to tell y'all that we're going to have a special guest on the Puncher's Point. And again, I said it was going to be for Devin Haney versus Brian Norman, which is what we're going to be talking about. We got Brian Norman versus Devin Haney for the WBO Welterweight Championship in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on November 22nd. Now, we all know this is going to be a stacked card with some names featuring David Benavidez, Jesse Bam Rodriguez, Abdullah Mason. I mean, this is going to be a great card, but overall, I felt like this was the most important fight on the card. And my guess, a big Devin Haney fan, I wanted him on here. I want him to talk about this fight because we've talked about this off the record, off camera. However, we're here to talk to you guys about it on the camera. So, ladies and gentlemen, the former co-host of the Puncher's Point, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the podcast, Breezy.
I'm doing blessed and highly favored, and I'm glad to be back here one more time predicting another Devin Haney fight. Before we was calling him the Dream, but you know what? We about to start calling him Debo Dev. Let's get straight to it.
And for sure, we're going to be talking about Brian Norman and Devin Haney, and overall, I mean, this is a very interesting matchup. Brian Norman, he's considered one of the best at 147 pounds. Obviously, the talks were with him and Jerron Boots Ennis when Boots was at 147 pounds. Unfortunately, that fight didn't happen. People were calling Boots a duck. Brian Norman's still in this division. Devin Haney, obviously outgrowing 140 pounds. He's going up to 147 pounds. And look, I've been on record to say I'm not the biggest Devin Haney fan. However, what I will say is I respect Devin Haney. I respect him because every single time he's fighting a guy, he always takes the biggest challenges. Even his tune-ups aren't what you call easy things. I mean, I know Jose Ramirez wasn't the peak Jose Ramirez that we remember him to be, but overall, that's a tough tune-up fight in itself. And even though he didn't have the best performance there, a lot of people didn't like that performance. They criticized him about it. He's going into 147. He's challenging arguably the best 147-pounder right now. And overall, this is going to be a great fight. So with all of that being said, we're going to start off with the breakdown of the champion, Brian Norman Jr. And overall, we're going to start off with Breezy. Breezy, give me your breakdown for Brian Norman Jr.
For Brian Norman Jr., I got myself a nice little list. Let's go down this list. Brian Norman Jr. is very high in being aggressive. What he does, he likes to stalk his opponents down. He likes to walk them down. He has very fast combinations. He has a lot of power in both hands, solid footwork, a strong jab, not any kind of jab, but a strong jab. He's been known to hurt fighters with the jab. Sneaky shots to the body, especially when he gets pressured. He likes to come to the body and come up. And he can counterpunch you from any angle. And the thing about Brian Norman Jr., what makes this fight so much more interesting is that we see how he looked against other guys like Sasaki, and now he's in there with a guy who's a technical pure boxer. And now it's about to be a testing of him using all those tools in one whole area. But don't be alarmed. Don't be alarmed. He does have some weaknesses. His weaknesses consist of is this. He tends to get greedy sometimes in the middle to the later parts of the fight, which causes him to gas out. He sometimes gets backed up against the ropes, which allows him to take a lot of punches, maybe a whole bunch of accumulating of punches. Nothing too crazy, but he takes a lot of punches on the ropes. And that sometimes, too, when he comes in, sometimes he gets countered. One of the biggest things I've been hearing about the build-up to this fight was that a whole lot of offense, which let's not take anything away from B. Norm Jr. He does have a lot of offense. He does have power in both his hands. But one of the big key indicators that I'm not hearing is the defense. What are they going to do if Devin Haney not has this kind of crazy power, but let's just say Devin Haney has some kind of little pop on them punches that he didn't have at 140, that he didn't have at 135. what is going to be the defensive game plan to Devin Haney if he's able to out-counter him and hurt him at times? Not necessarily really hurt him, but just to get him something to make him feel it. So this whole build, I've just been hearing everything about offense and not necessarily defense, which he does. He has some pretty good defense. But what I'm saying is there's times where he gets hungry. And there's nothing wrong with being hungry, but sometimes hunger leads to greed. That would be my breakdown, Mr. B. Norm Jr.
And I agree with some of those for sure. Obviously, he's a more of an offensive first fighter. Now, some of the strengths I had, now I always like to point to a primary punch when it comes to a lot of fighters. And with Brian Norman Jr., I really like that check hook, specifically the check left hook. He throws it extremely well. And again, when he hits you with that left hand, you're going to know about it. That left hand is an equalizer. And we see what happened with him versus his last opponent, Saki. I mean, we seen what happened. This guy, he packs power in that left hand. He packs power in the right as well, but specifically that left hand, it's a very dangerous punch when he throws it, specifically that check hook. He goes consistent to the body. That's what I really like about Brian Norman Jr. Every single round, he's going to constantly go to that body. He's not going to take rounds off. He's not going to stop going to the body. This guy is a constant body puncher, and he's not that type of body puncher that's going to hit you with one body shot and you're going to feel it and go down. He's that type of guy that's going to hit you with a multiple plethora of body shots, and he's going to get you tired as the round progresses. Now, the other thing about him, too, is he fights off the ropes very well. Now, don't get me wrong. There's times where he puts himself on those ropes. But a lot of guys, once they put themselves on those ropes, they don't know how to get out of those ropes. They'll end up clinching. They'll end up putting themselves in a predicament they don't want to be in. With Brian Norman Jr., it's almost like he wants to fight on the ropes. When he puts himself on the ropes, it's almost like he wants to fight on the ropes. And that's where he does some of his best work on the ropes. When his back is against those ropes, that's where some of his best power punches come in. And I think the reason why is because it goes all the way back to his sneaky shots. When he's on the ropes, I feel like he can sneak those shots in a lot better. The other thing, too, he's got a good left straight. He's very precise. And on top of that, he's an aggressor, like you mentioned. He's going to keep on coming forward. He's going to keep on trucking forward. And the thing about Brian Norman Jr. is every single fight, he's going to push his opponents on the ropes. Even when he puts himself on those ropes, it doesn't matter. He's going to constantly try to push his opponents on those ropes. And then last but not least, he's got a sneaky right uppercut. He really likes sneaking in that right uppercut, and it's a punch that he does very, very well. He does it very efficiently, and he adds it into one of his other strengths, which is how patient he is. We saw that knockout against Saki. We saw how he was able to knock him out with one punch. That is called patience right there. This is the type of guy, even though he rushes in, he gets a little bit greedy. This is also a guy that when he's in his element, when he's in his time, when he's actually fighting his fight, he's extremely patient. If he hits you with one of those shots, you're going to know about it. Now, one of the weaknesses that Breezy pointed to was he gets tired very easily. And I had that as one of the weaknesses as well, that he has a questionable gas tank. See, the thing is with Brian Norman Jr., as he gets on to the later rounds, that's when you start seeing the fundamentals kind of go away. That's when you see the footwork start getting a little bit sloppy. That's when you start seeing him not as aggressive as he is. He tries to be as aggressive as he possibly can, but the problem is we can tell, we can see it. He's tired. And to go into a fight with Devin Haney, a guy who is capable of going 12 rounds, a guy who's gone 12 rounds more than he's had the fight stop short, that's going to be a big issue. The other weakness I had for Brian Norman is lead hooks. When his opponents clip him with lead hooks, it turns into a problem. And it's one of those punches that Brian Norman is kind of susceptible to. It's one of those punches that Brian Norman is weak to as well, those lead hooks. The other thing I will say, he struggles with boxing while he's backing up. Brian Norman is very good when he's charging forward. But what about when his opponent is pushing him back? What about when he's pushing himself back before he gets to those ropes? That right there is when Brian Norman starts to lack some of that boxing skills, is when he's boxing backing up. He's very good forward, but when he comes to backing up, Brian Norman is not that guy. He leans his head in. That's the other thing, too. There's many times where opponents will hit him with a nice combo or hit him with a jab or something, and they'll clip him. And he'll lean his head in, and then that causes him to leave his head wide open, and it puts him in a very vulnerable situation. So he has a habit of doing that. Flat-footed. Now, what I will say is I don't think his footwork is terrible. I think it's okay, but it could definitely use some work. And I think the reason why is because I can see Brian Norman, and there's times where he has his moments. He'll kind of move around. He'll kind of cut angles. But in my opinion, I do think he is flat-footed. You know, I wouldn't say that footwork is a strength of his. I wouldn't say it's one of his elite skill sets. So in my opinion, and him being flat-footed, and him being slow-footed, that's kind of going hand in hand as well. And then last but not least, obviously, like I said, Brian Norman, he's got some weaknesses, but it seems that he tends to make it up on the offensive side. And overall, like I said, the guy is composed, the guy is patient, and again, when he is in his element, he's a dangerous fighter. Now, with all of that being said, we're going to go to handy dandy Devin Haney. Now, as far as Devin Haney, here's what I will say. Devin Haney, obviously one of the most criticized fighters in today's game. Devin Haney, he's always going after the biggest challenges. And I think when you go after the biggest challenges, you tend to get criticized a lot more. And with Devin Haney, again, this is another big, tough task for him. You're going up against one of the best 147-pounders. You're building onto that resume. Devin Haney's building himself a decent resume, and the guy's not even 30. So overall, we got to respect it. Regardless of what you think about Devin Haney, you can never say he doesn't go in there and he fights the best. So with all of that being said, again, because this is one of Breezy's favorite fighters, I am going to have Breezy start off with the breakdown of Devin Haney.
Okay. With Devin Haney has a real solid jab, which he showcases in all of his fights. That's usually what he does to start the fight off, to gauge the range, the gauge to see what his opponents are going to try to bring to the table for him. He's very technical and calculated on the outside. I'll say this was the best Devin Haney we've seen in the Regis fight. He was outside. He was keeping it range. Regis was trying to walk him down. Dev was just locked in on the mode. He was outside, keeping that jab on him. So he's very technical and calculated on the outside, which is the best game plan Devin Haney can bring to somebody. Can jab you walking forward and can jab you going backwards. I seen this more so in both Kambosos fight, more so maybe the first fight. Now at first I know it kind of looked a little kind of tipsy because maybe Kambosos was looking to try to trade with Haney, but one thing I like about Devin Haney is his will to adjust to maybe guys who's not so much of a power hitter, but somebody that's trying to necessarily fight his game. If anybody ever tries to fight Devin Haney's game, it usually ends with him exemplifying his game plan over theirs. He's shown that he can use his defense as time defense, and he can also use it as an offense. What I'm saying is he's used it as a way to counter, and he's used it as a way to slip. One thing about Devin Haney that I like is his slips. His slips is very time and very accurate. And I think that especially when he's in the middle of the ring, because it gives him breathing room to kind of move around. He's slick on his feet, also leaning more toes to that Regis fight. I did like the footwork he was kind of using in the Kambosos fight too. He is well-rounded at jabbing to the body, which I know a lot of people may find this very controversial, but the Lomachenko fight, when he started off early, he was going to the body, which I know a lot of people don't really care, but body shots count too. I liked how he was using that body work early on in Lomachenko, and he has a nice counterpunch sequence. If you look at the way he counterpunched and dropped Regis, that right there was, like I said, to me, one of the best Devin Haney's ever, because we saw his skills on display. Almost everything in one form in one night displayed against Regis. His weakness, he doesn't do too well when a fighter overcrowds him with pressure. I could give y'all two names right off the bat. Ryan and Lomachenko. Lomachenko brought the pressure to him, and you could tell it started to get towards Haney. And you could tell that he started getting pushed back and getting pushed up against the ropes. With Ryan hit him with the shot. He kept looking for that lick back. And then because he had got hurt, Ryan started to now take advantage and start trying to press him now because he see that he could hurt Haney. He tends to get hit with a left punch. Well, and look, I did my study this time, and I can actually go back and see there's times where he does get hit with a left punch. More so, the left hook, which a lot of y'all been telling him to block. Okay? he gets too caught up in trying to get the lick, which I said earlier about with the Ryan. He was trying to get the lick back, which forces him to fight in the inside, which we know Devin Haney is an outside fighter, not a pocket fighter. So sometimes he does falls victim into trying to get in the pocket and fight in the inside, when in reality he just needs to fight on the outside. He takes a lot of punches in combinations. There's times it's in out, and another point towards the Lomachenko fight, Lomo was hitting him with combinations, and when he hit him with combinations, Haney kind of backed off a little bit. And he has this little thing where he kind of turns his head and dips in, and he tends to take more punches when he does that. So I don't want to see him doing that this fight. He also drops his head down, kind of leaning back to the point that I just made. If you ever seen him fight, and especially in that Regis fight, early on in the Regis fight, when Regis started trying to press the action to him in the inside, he dipped his head in like that, and I could see where Regis missed him by the good little shot. But if Regis would have connected, he probably would have hurted Haney. So he does tend to dip his head in, which I don't think he should be doing that, because he leaves himself open for an uppercut or a nice hook, predominantly the left hook. See what I'm saying? And other than that, though, I think sometimes he has his moments where he's able to use the ropes to bounce back off and use his defense and get off the ropes. But oftentimes, too, he sometimes get hit with too many combinations. And if he gets overcrowded with pressure on the ropes, sometimes he does take those combinations. And sometimes, it does take a toll on him. So that would be my breakdown for Devin Debo Haney.
I don't know if I ever heard anybody call him Debo, but I mean, we'll stick with it. So, strengths for Devin Haney. One of the things I've always said about Devin Haney is I've loved his stance. He's got that pure boxer stance, and I'm a big fan of that pure boxer stance. Honestly, guys like him, Shakur Stevenson, Richardson Hitchens, those guys, they got that pure boxing stance down. Floyd Mayweather back in the past, you guys already know. The other thing I will say about him is his endurance. Devin Haney, everybody kept clowning him about how he doesn't have the knockout power. But the one thing that nobody gives him credit for is how he's able to go through these 12-round fights. He's able to control the pace as a guy who doesn't have quote-unquote knockout power, and he's able to go in there from round 1 to round 12 and look the same exact way. Nobody gave him credit for any of that. And I'll even go back to the Ryan fight. Ryan knocked him down 3 times in that fight, and Devin Haney still wasn't tired. So overall, I believe that endurance is Devin Haney's biggest strength in his entire boxing career. He's got a good jab. Now, of course, y'all are going to be talking about overextending that jab, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But overall, when he starts landing that jab, when he starts clicking with the jab, he's a very, very dangerous fighter for a lot of these guys. The other thing about him, too, good footwork. See, Devin Haney's very good at using his footwork, cutting angles. He's very good at using all of his defensive traits. Breezy mentioned how he's very good with slips and he's very good with weaving a lot of shots. Again, his defense is pretty polished, in my opinion. Is it perfect? No. Obviously, he's gotten clipped with stuff. We're going to talk about where that defense lacks. But overall, if I had to point to his entire defensive approach, 85% of it, I'm down for. The other thing, too, is he's very composed. Devin Haney's a very patient fighter. Maybe sometimes a little too patient, but he's a very patient fighter. He's very composed. Devin Haney's not that type of guy that is going to start throwing some wild punches when he is fighting his fight. That's the key. When he's fighting his fight. I don't want to talk about no Ryan Garcia. When he's fighting his fight, Devin Haney is a very composed fighter. He's got a very versatile right hand. That right hand, he can throw as an uppercut. He can throw as a hook. He can throw as a straight. He's got a very, very versatile right hand. That jab is for his left. Everything else, he loads it up with the right. The other thing about him as well is overall Devin Haney has showed so many of those strengths, and he's very great at putting it together. He's kind of like a chef. He's very good at, taking his strengths. Like, he's very good with the jab. He's very good with using his footwork. He's very good with the slips. He's very good with all of these types of things, and he puts it all together and he turns it into this big recipe. And again, the recipe, when it works out, it makes for an amazing 5-course meal. Now, with all of that being said, we go to the weaknesses. Breezy pointed to his weaknesses. He doesn't handle pressure well. I agreed with that one that Breezy said. The other one that he mentioned that I'm really glad he did mention, because I was going to mention if he didn't, was his weakness is that left hand, specifically that left hook. And that's a big weakness in this fight because for somebody like Brian Norman, who's got power in both of his hands, he doesn't. I know Brian Norman's a righty, but he doesn't have to throw that right hand to hurt Devin Haney. If he throws that left, I think Devin Haney's going to be in some problems. The other thing is he struggles with punches above his lead hand. So what I'm going to say is this. If you look at the left hand, look at the picture next to me. When you look at that picture, look at how low that hand is. Now, I understand he kind of portrays like the little shoulder roll that Floyd Mayweather did, but the difference is when you get over that lead hand, Devin Haney's in trouble. Devin Haney is in trouble. And to me, that is one of his weaknesses. If you can get over that lead hand, you can hurt Devin Haney. Now, the other thing, too, is he overextends his jab. I was going to get to that, and now here we are. The thing is, he's got a really good jab. However, go back to the Ryan fight, there's many moments where he overextends his jab. And it was a thing that we really didn't talk about until Floyd Mayweather brought it up. And Floyd Mayweather used to do the same exact problem. So we're not going to talk about how Floyd Mayweather is pointing out a weakness in Devin Haney that Floyd Mayweather used in his career. But overall, he overextends that jab. And when he overextends that jab, it can put him in a very vulnerable position. That's how Ryan Garcia was able to clip him with the left hook. That's how Ryan Garcia was able to go in and clip him with some hard shots that he shouldn't have been clipped with. And then last but not least, this to me is a fairly new weakness. I still have questions about how he evolved as a fighter. I told Breezy, I said, look, the only thing about Devin Haney is we saw the Lomachenko fight. And the question I had was, if he goes up against a fighter like that again, is he going to be able to show improvements? Then the Ryan Garcia fight happened. And then Ryan Garcia ended up exposing him with some of those power punches. And the question I had was, is he going to redeem himself? Is he going to show that he's tweaked up those mistakes? He goes into the fight with Jose Ramirez. Okay, well, you were really defensive. However, you barely threw any offensive shots. That fight is one of the least. That fight has got to be one of the worst offensive performances from both fighters I've ever seen. And me and Breezy talked about this. Breezy's case was that in that fight, he didn't necessarily need to show that much offense against a guy like Jose Ramirez. But in this fight, if you fight the way you fought against Jose Ramirez, you're not going to win. If you fought the fight against Ryan Garcia in this fight, you're not going to win. So in my opinion, this is where Devin Haney has to put it all together. This is where he's got to stir the pot. This is where Devin Haney has to put the ingredients in and create this recipe to defeat Brian Norman Jr. to become a champion in another division. So in my opinion, that's the whole breakdown I have for Devin Haney and Brian Norman as well. Now we're going to get to the keys to victory, and we're going to start off with the keys to victory to Brian Norman. So with all that being said, I am going to pass this along to Breezy, and we're going to start off with Breezy's keys to victory for Brian Norman Jr.
Key to victory for B. Norm Jr. Start off immediately with the pressure. If B. Norm Sr. did his study, he would know pressure busts his pipes. Pause. No, Diddy. No, take it that way. But pressure definitely throws him off. Especially pressure starting off early. I reference it all the time. The Lomachenko fight. I guarantee you, if Lomachenko would have started that fight off just like that, we'll probably be talking about a different outcome right now. So what you want to do is you want to throw Haney off his game plan. You want to start up immediately bringing the pressure to him. Give him something he ain't used to. Because everybody else, they used to, kind of stand in a little glimpse and stand on the outside and get hit in the face with the jab. What you want to do is you want to cut it off. You want to try to cut that ring off on them. Start going to that body, which my next point, it may not be in order, but I'm putting it all together. Stay with me. Slow him down to the body. Another thing Lomachenko did was start hitting him to the body and started coming up to the top. For you, Brian Norman Jr., you are the power puncher in this case, obviously. So what you want to do is you want to start working to the body. Slow him down. Everybody knows when you start working to the body, you slow your partner down. And the thing about it is when Haney's going to be trying to look to move. He's going to be trying to look to use his footwork. He's going to be looking to use any kind of angles he can to get out of your way. So you definitely want to bring the pressure to him, slow him down with the body, and catch Haney with them sneaky shots. At some point in this fight, I do believe Devin Haney is going to try to dip that head in. That's where you can use your uppercut. That's when you can use your hooks. Who knows? We might hypothetically see a Sasaki moment. Who knows? But you have to put them shots together, because I guarantee you there's going to be a time and point where he's going to try to do the herky-jerky head movement. I don't like when he dips it in, but it's a more likely chance that he might dip it in because he's going to be looking to try to use his head movement. I see training footage of him trying to work on that head movement, so he just might dip that head in. Just be ready to catch him with those sneaky shots. And that would be my keys to victory for B. Norm Jr.
Honestly, I agree with all those. I think those are great 3 keys to victory, and I do believe that if he follows those 3 keys, I believe Brian Norman Jr.'s got a great chance of even knocking out Devin Haney. Now, for me, my first key to victory for Brian Norman Jr., to get a little bit more specific, is look to land the lead left hand, or look to land the left hand, excuse me. That would be my first key to victory. Look to lead the left hand. Excuse me. That would be my first key to victory. Look to land the left hand. You see, like we've talked about, that's his weakness right there. And no matter how many times Ryan Garcia threw it in that fight, he landed that left hand. There were moments where I think Lomachenko landed that left hand. And you know what? We can even go back to the earlier fights that he had, Linares. Again, that left hand has always been a weakness for Devin Haney. So in my opinion, Brian Norman, he's got to land that left hand. The second key to victory is keep the pressure on Haney. Breezy talked about it. From the start of the fight, you got to keep that pressure on Haney. I say you got to keep it on him the entire fight. And in my opinion, if Brian Norman Jr. can keep that pressure on Devin Haney, even if he doesn't get the knockout, if you can keep that pressure on Devin Haney, you got a good chance to secure a decision victory over Devin Haney. And again, Lomachenko, he had his moments of putting the pressure on Devin Haney. And me and Breezy, we talked about it. We mentioned it many times on this podcast. I thought Lomachenko won that fight. I thought Lomachenko won that fight. Breezy thought Devin won that fight. But regardless of how you slice it or dice it, if Lomachenko didn't take some rounds off, if Lomachenko kept that pressure on every single fight, every single round, I should say, if Lomachenko kept that pressure on every single round, then, again, it would have been a different result. But obviously, that's all ifs, ands, or buts. In this specific case, Brian Norman has got to keep that pressure on Devin Haney. Not just the start, not just the end, but throughout the whole entire fight. And last but not least, throw over his lead hand. That is how you're going to beat him, with the left hand. And on the other side, if you throw over his lead hand. Again, he's very good with that jab, but he keeps that hand low. Throw over that lead hand. And if you could throw over that lead hand, you have 2 punches that could defeat Devin Haney. So in my opinion, those are the specific punches that I want to see Brian Norman throw. And I believe if he can throw those punches, he's going to have Devin Haney in a whirlwind of trouble. And with all that, we go to Devin Haney's keys to victory. So we're going to pass this right back on to Breezy. Breezy, give me your keys to victory for Devin Haney.
Jab. That's your most dominant punch. That's your best punch. That punch got you undisputed. So definitely, and don't get too greedy with it. Just stay with the jab. Stay with the jab. Keep your range, which would be my next point. Keep the fight on the outside. I always told y'all, and even in the past when we had Devin Haney fight predictions, the best Devin Haney you gonna ever get is a Devin Haney that sticks to the game plan, that's fighting on the outside, that's keeping range, that's making fighters miss. And you gotta understand, Devin Haney's a pretty big, solid dude. And then you gotta understand, on top of that, he has the reach. And a lot of times, well, I don't want to say all the times, but a good amount of times, he has longer reach than the guys he's facing, which helps him in the long run because it helps him get off that job, it helps him get out the way, and it helps him keep a steady, good, patient fight on the outside. Don't trade on the inside with Norman. That should be a given. And look, I know Ryan had what he had in his. I think people is forgetting the time when Ryan and Devin had a press conference and he got dared to get in the inside and trade with Ryan. You best not get in the inside and start trying to trade with Norman, because I can tell you right now, Norman's going to look at to try to make it a dog fight. At some point, whether it's the middle of the fight or the ending part of the fight, Norman is going to look to try to make this a dog fight. But you know what you need to do? The first 2 that I just named, use your jab. Keep the fight on the outside. Do not get too greedy. And please don't get caught up in what the fans are saying. Please don't. What you need to do is fight this fight the way you always fight your fights. You didn't become undisputed trying to fight in the inside and trying to trade with nobody. You became undisputed being the pure athletic slick boxer that uses his jabs and take other people's strengths away. So that's what you need to do. And side note, Debo Dev is a new name. It just came out recently on the block. It's a new name. I know it's kind of late, y'all. My bad, but it is a new name, so it's no longer a dream. It's Debo Deal. He take it. He wants it, so he's gonna take it. So now the new name is Debo Deal.
Now, overall, here's what I will say about Devin Haney. I really do love the keys, and obviously, he has to stay on the outside. He can't train on the inside with Brian Norman. Ryan, I think, genuinely got under his skin. When he made that bet with Ryan truly got under his skin. I don't think Devin Haney is going to make that same mistake twice. So I don't think he'll get onto the inside. But again, that's absolutely a great point, and he has to use that jab for sure. Now, as far as me, the first key to victory I have for Devin Haney, cut angles on Norman. Like I said, he's flat-footed. So if you can cut those angles on Brian Norman and force him to look for you the entire way, that is going to be a big key for Devin Haney. Use your footwork. Number 2, target the body consistently and constantly. From round 1 all the way to round 12, target that body. Because again, if Brian Norman can't knock you out, he's going to have to go to later rounds with you. And the more you target that body, the more tired Brian Norman is going to get. So in my opinion, Devin Haney should not be preparing for knocking out Brian Norman in early rounds or nothing like that. I don't think he's preparing for that regardless. If you're preparing for a long fight, you have to target the body consistently and constantly on Brian Norman for the entirety of the fight. And then last but not least, counter after the first thrown punch by Norman. Brian Norman is going to throw that first punch. And when he throws that first punch, you're going to throw right after. And when you throw right after, Brian Norman is going to back up. Go watch the film. Brian Norman, one of the weaknesses I forgot about Brian Norman is when he throws a punch. When his opponent beats him to the punch, he throws a punch. When his opponent clips him, Brian Norman does not reset on time. He's not that type of guy that will get hit by a punch and reset automatically. He's going to take some time to reset, and that's when he starts pushing himself back. That's when he starts trying to fight backwards, and he can't do it. So in my opinion, that's the third key to victory for Devin Haney. Counter him after the first punch thrown. You did it very well against Regis. You did it efficiently against Kambosos. Do it here. And to me, that would be the 3 keys to victory for Brian Norman. That would be the 3 keys to victory for Devin Haney. And so with all of that, we go to the betting odds. And Breezy, this is a first. This is honestly a first with the betting odds. I would tell you, guess who the favorite is for this fight. And in other websites, I'm not going to lie to you, it's Brian Norman by a slight margin. Not FanDuel. FanDuel, the betting odds for FanDuel, Brian Norman Jr. minus 112. Devin Haney minus 112. Yes, you read that right. As of right now, it is literally dead even odds for both of these guys. So, before I bring you on, Breezy, I got to ask you, A, what would you call a safe bet? Hey, if it's 50-50, I assume either one is a safe bet. But overall, what are your thoughts on those betting odds? Who do you have winning? And would you say it's a safe bet to bet for the opposite guy that you're predicting will win this fight? That is those 3 questions for you. A, what are your thoughts on the betting odds being even? B, who you got win this fight? And C, would you recommend to the fans watching to bet on the opposite guy? Is there a decent chance that the opposite guy could win? So those are my 3 questions for you, and I'm going to pass it back on to you.
This fight is very even on the betting odds. Lets me know that this fight really should have been the main event. No disrespect to Benavidez, no disrespect to Yardy. This fight really should have been the main event. Because if you look at the build-up to this fight, I ain't going to be long with this. I don't want to be long-winded. If you look at the build-up to this fight, you got a guy who's had 2 bad performances recently, trying to move up. He ain't known as no hard hitter. Going against a guy at 147 that has a title who is considered right now probably one of the hardest hitters at 147. This makes for an awesome matchup. And see, with the betting odds is very tricky. So I could definitely see why it's even, but I don't try to play with betting because let me tell y'all something. Betting odds is real mind consuming. It's very tricky with the mind. Let's take an example, Canelo and Terrence Crawford. Did y'all see how the betting odds change mid-fight? So betting odds are very tricky. So I don't like to pay attention to those. I always tell people to go with what you know from each fighter, because betting guys will do that. And I can just about assure you, if when the fight happens, it's going to be going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But I will say this, I do think it's hilarious how it's so even. I do think that's pretty funny. Who do I think will win? Who do I think will win? I think Devin Haney will edge him. He has to put on a performance. He has to. I think him and his IQ and his experience will definitely play a big factor in this fight. And it just call me crazy, but I could see B Norm getting frustrated and Devin Haney using that as a way to have a comeback victory in a very spectacular fashion. Now, I'm not going to say, oh, he's about to knock him out. I'm not going that far. Give me Devin Haney by a cool unanimous decision. Maybe split on a good day, but I don't know. I could see B-Norm being frustrated. So give me Dev UD. Not because he's going in there, but off the strength of B-Norm being frustrated. Do I think it would be crazy to bet against the other guy that I'm picking for? No, I don't. And the reason why I say this is because, one, it's boxing. Anything can happen. There are two grown men. Anything can happen at any given moment. Two, I've seen what B Norm can do. He has power in both hands. And three, I mean, I'm just saying, I like different punches, different power hitters hit harder than the last, and do different things. He was able to get up with Ryan, but I don't know if it would be the same with B Norm. So no, it would not be crazy for somebody to bet on B Norm. No, it wouldn't. Matter of fact, I think that if you're not really that deep explored with this fight, that'll probably be the better bet for you to make. If you're more so a casual, but if you're more so locked in, it's kind of tough if you really locked in with boxing. So I don't see anything wrong with people seeing B Norm as a winner, but I do think Devin Haney will edge him. But I do think it's going to be B Norm trying to control the fight early on. Devin Haney start figuring him out, start using the jab. B Norm start trying to get frustrated and start trying to walk him down. And Devin Haney using his defense prowess and his IQ and the strength of him being in a 12-round fight to tire him out and frustrate him to get to the decision victory. And that would be my prediction.
I think it's a good prediction, honestly. And that's the concern I have for Brian Norman. The two concerns I have for Brian Norman are A, how are you going to handle a 12-round fight with a guy who can go 12 rounds in his sleep? And B, again, we've seen the competition you face. No disrespect to Sasaki, but Sasaki is nowhere near Devin Haney. So my question is, Devin Haney has fought some of the best of the best. He fought some of the best guys at the times that he's fought them. So in my opinion, Devin Haney's ready for a champion like this. I can't say Brian Norman is ready for Devin Haney. I can't say that because resume speaks for itself. So those are my questions for Brian Norman. My questions for Devin Haney is, what I saw in the Jose Ramirez fight, you were extremely defensive. After the Ryan Garcia fight, did that Ryan Garcia fight do something to you? To the point where you're too afraid to throw a shot because you're too afraid of what's going to come back next? That's my question right there. Has your game evolved, Devin Haney? There was a Lomachenko fight. I said I need to see that game evolve. There was the Ryan Garcia fight. It did not evolve. So in my opinion, from what history has shown, I don't know if Devin Haney has evolved. I don't know if Devin Haney has fixed some of those mistakes that he's made. But I also know that Brian Norman hasn't been in the ring with somebody like Devin Haney. So this is going to be tough. And again, Breezy's right. overall, I mean, it's minus 112 each for FanDuel. Now, when you go to like some of these other betting websites, they have Brian Norman right now as the favorite. If you were to ask me who I got winning, look, I'm going to say this right now. I got questions about both of these guys. But from what I've seen, I know Brian Norman's on a roll. I know he's on a roll. But in my opinion, I don't know if he's going to knock out Devin Haney. You would have to hit him, I think, with a Sasaki type punch and knock his lights out cold. I think Devin Haney is going to be aware of those power punches. And the question is, again, Brian Norman, you could take the first 4 rounds. Are you going to be able to take the next 8? You could take the first 5. Are you going to be able to take the next 7? You could take the first 6. Are you going to be able to take the last 6? That is my question for Brian Norman, and those are questions I think have yet to be answered. I know he's won some unanimous decision wins, but if you go back and you look at those unanimous decision wins, they didn't look pretty. So in my opinion, look, y'all are going to hate me, but I got Devin Haney winning this one. I got him winning by unanimous decision, a very slim unanimous decision. I think what's going to happen is I think Brian Norman's going to have a good first 2 rounds, and I think that's where it's going to stop. I think Devin Haney's going to go in there. He's going to basically kind of masterclass him a little bit, but then we're going to see Brian Norman kind of clip him with some shots he's not supposed to be clipped with. And I'm going to give Devin Haney the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He has to prove in this fight that he has learned from the mistakes from the Ryan fight and the Loma fight. If he don't, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think Devin Haney's going to be a legit champion in this division for too long. I really don't. And especially with some of these guys that are coming. I mean, Mario Barrios, again, look, there's that fight with him, and obviously not many people are fixated on Mario Barrios. Manny Pacquiao's still in that division. That's a sneaky guy as well. But I think y'all forgetting about one guy. You guys are forgetting about one guy who just had a great performance. Carter Benn's coming in there, and he's looking for blood. And I'm going to be honest with you, Devin Haney has to show up. He has to show up because I'm telling you, if he goes into the if we see the same Devin Haney making these same mistakes, he makes those mistakes with Conor Benn, he's going to feel it. He makes those mistakes with Brian Norman, he's going to feel it. But in my opinion, the way I see this fight happening, Brian Norman might take the first 2 rounds. Devin Haney might get ahead on the scorecards. I think he might take like a round or 2 off. And I think Brian Norman might win a couple rounds. But overall, I can see this being like an 8 rounds to 4, Devin Haney, 9 rounds to 3. So overall, I got Devin Haney win this fight by unanimous decision. And so, with all of that being said, I'm going to pass it on to Breezy so he can say his last words before we wrap up this podcast. So, Breezy, I'm going to pass it on to you. You take it away. Give your last words. Any shout-outs you want to give, feel free to give them out now. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, Breezy's last words before we log out this podcast.
If I'm wrong, I eat crow. I don't mind eating crow. I've ate a lot of crow in this good old sport of boxing. I've ate plenty of crow. So if I got to eat crow this Saturday, I eat it. If I got to eat it Sunday, I'll eat it. Okay? Matter of fact, I'll do this, right? And Mario, you probably got to remind me because I'm young, but my mind is bad. If this fight does not go how I have it going, remind me, and I will personally, on my own account, go under the Puncher's Point video of the post-fight analyst, and I will be like, I was wrong. I will do that. Okay? I do not mind doing that. I don't mind admitting I was wrong. I don't mind admitting that I had a failed prediction. I don't mind doing it. I will do it. Okay? I don't mind. And look, to piggyback on what he said, if he does not show up this fight, and look, I like Devin Haney, but I might just have to call a spade and be like, because when you get past Brian Norman, the competition gets steeper and steeper and steeper and steeper and steeper. So this is a real test. Devin, you're gonna have to show up for this one. We're gonna need you to show up for this one, dog. All right. Because Debo Dev, I need you to lock in. Show up with your chain, show up on the bike, show up with a button-up flannel or something. We need you to show up for this one. Come on, Devin. We need you to show up this Saturday. And with further ado, I'm gonna pass it back to Mario and let him end this. And thank y'all for having me again. And have a great night.
Hey, you guys heard it from Breezy. He will personally give y'all a public apology if Devin Haney does not win this fight. And so with all that being said, it's time for us to log out of this episode of The Puncher's Point. Make sure y'all continue to tune into The Puncher's Point. Make sure y'all continue to tune into us on the podcast platforms. Make sure y'all follow and subscribe to the podcast platforms. Make sure y'all follow us on the social medias, and make sure y'all subscribe to the YouTube for more of this great content, for more of these breakdowns. And with that being said, make sure y'all continue to tune into The Puncher's Point. The Puncher's Point is going to keep on punching back at y'all. And last but not least, make sure y'all continue to stay on point with The Puncher's Point.